Strategic shifts are never about geography, they are about survival. When Jaishankar makes a visible turn toward the United States, it is not a tourist choosing a new destination. It is a civilization making a choice about whether it will command the future or be consumed by it. Geography tells us where nations are located. Strategy tells us whether they survive or collapse. And survival in the modern world does not depend on who has the tallest mountains or the deepest rivers. It depends on who builds alliances that secure strength against the storms that are coming. To understand the weight of such a shift, we must strip away illusions. Many believe that turning toward America is about admiration, flattery, or seeking favor. That is nonsense. Nations do not admire, they calculate. Nations do not flatter, they position. Nations do not seek favors, they seek leverage. Jaishankar's move toward the United States is not about copying America. It is about ensuring India is not left vulnerable in a world where the winds of power are changing direction every hour. Survival today is not about standing alone on principle. It is about recognizing that even the strongest trees fall when storms grow violent. The storm that the world faces is not just economic. It is technological, military, and ideological. Artificial intelligence, climate shocks, cyber wars, and shifting global supply chains mean no nation, however proud, can survive in isolation. And here lies the shocking truth. Neutrality in a fragmented world is no longer a safe position. It is a death sentence. That is why survival demands turning, adapting, and recalibrating before it is too late. Some will ask, why America? Why not Europe, Russia, or China? The answer is cold and logical. America remains the most powerful engine of innovation, the most influential voice in global institutions, and the most decisive military presence in the modern world. To turn toward the United States is not to kneel before it, it is to lock eyes with it, and to declare that India will engage as an equal, not as a spectator. Survival is not found in standing still. It is found in turning toward the arena where the future is being decided and demanding a place inside it. This is where emotion strikes. For too long, Indians have been told to be cautious, to wait, to watch while others dominate global conversations. But survival is not for the timid. It is for those who dare to step into the fire of alliances without losing their identity. Jaishankar's turn is not just a diplomatic maneuver. It is a survival strategy for every farmer, every student, every worker, every dreamer in India. Because survival at the national level is the condition for survival at the personal level. If India is dismissed globally, its people are dismissed. If India rises globally, its people rise. So let it be clear, when Jaishankar turns toward the United States, it is not about distance traveled across maps. It is about distance traveled across history. It is a survival choice, made in the knowledge that those who refuse to adapt are erased. Geography may show us where we are, but strategy determines whether we will remain there tomorrow, and survival has only one law: adapt or perish. Jaishankar's turn is proof that India has chosen survival. Nations are defined not by where they stand, but by whom they stand with. Maps may show borders, flags may symbolize identity, and anthems may echo pride, but none of these guarantees survival or greatness. The world is not impressed by where a nation happens to exist. It is shaped by the alliances that nation forges. And when Jaishankar makes a turn toward the United States, he is acknowledging a timeless law of power. No nation is remembered by its isolation, but by the company it keeps. Think of history. Rome was not great simply because it was Rome. It was great because of the alliances it built, the networks it sustained, the way it integrated others into its sphere of influence. The British Empire did not rule a quarter of the world simply because of its navy, but because it had allies, colonies, and trading partners that extended its reach. Even America itself, for all its power, does not stand alone. Its strength comes from NATO, from its global partnerships, from the fact that others are willing to align with it. Nations are never defined by their borders, they are defined by their bonds. This is why Jaishankar'S tilt matters. India cannot define itself merely as a nation that sits between the Himalayas and the Indian Ocean. It must define itself as a nation that chooses its companions in such a way that those companions amplify its voice, expand its reach, and secure its survival. Standing with the wrong partners can pull a nation into decline. Standing with the right ones can catapult it into destiny. And neutrality in this age is not noble, it is invisibility. A nation that stands with no one is seen by no one. Here lies the shocking truth. Nations are judged by association. If you stand with the weak, you inherit their weakness. If you stand with the indecisive, you inherit their chaos. But if you stand with the strong, the innovative, the forward-looking, you inherit their momentum. Turning toward America is not about bowing down. It is about stepping into alignment with the forces that are shaping tomorrow. And by doing so, India does not lose itself, it magnifies itself. The emotional weight of this is enormous. Because when leaders choose partners, they are choosing on behalf of every citizen. If India aligns with stagnation, its people inherit stagnation. If India aligns with dynamism, its people inherit opportunity. Imagine an India that defines itself not by old colonial shadows or by the pressures of rival powers, but by standing alongside the very nations that are inventing the technologies, building the wealth, and shaping the conversations of the 21st century. That alignment would not just change India's position, it would change the fate of every Indian child born tomorrow. So let us not pretend that geography defines us. The soil of a nation matters less than the shoulders it chooses to stand upon. Nations that isolate themselves may cling to pride, but pride without partnership rots into irrelevance. Nations that align with the future redefine themselves as the future. That is the significance of Jaishankar'S turn. It is not just a matter of foreign policy, it is a matter of national identity. India must not be defined as a nation that simply exists on a map. It must be defined as a nation that chooses its company wisely, that aligns with strength, that refuses to stand with those who are collapsing, and that boldly declares, "We will stand where the future is being built." That is how nations rise. That is how history remembers them. And that is why Jaishankar'S decision to stand closer to the U.S. is not just strategy, it is identity in motion. Turning toward America is not dependency. It is a calculated test of strength. Too many voices cry out in fear whenever India leans toward a powerful partner. They whisper warnings of becoming subordinate, of surrendering autonomy, of repeating old mistakes of dependency. But this thinking is shallow and outdated. Dependency is when you lean without leverage. Strength is when you engage with clarity, ensuring that the partnership serves your vision rather than replacing it. Jaishankar'S shift toward the United States is not the act of a dependent, it is the move of a strategist testing India's ability to stand shoulder to shoulder with the strongest power on earth. The illusion of dependency is dangerous because it confuses engagement with submission. True dependency looks like nations that wait for handouts, beg for security guarantees, or allow foreign influence to dictate their internal policies. India is not doing that. India is not bending. India is bargaining. It is approaching the United States not as a supplicant, but as a sovereign force, saying, "We will walk with you, but only if it strengthens both of us." That is not dependency. It is proof of maturity. It is proof of strength. Think of it this way: strength is never proven in isolation. An athlete who never competes against the best can delude himself into thinking he is strong, but he will never know his true limits. A nation that avoids powerful partnerships can pretend to be independent, but it will never measure its real weight in the world. Jaishankar'S turn toward the U.S. is precisely this test. Can India negotiate as an equal? Can it hold its ground under pressure? Can it refuse unfair terms while still building bridges? These questions can only be answered by engaging directly with the mightiest. To avoid the test is not independence, it is fear. And fear is the path to decline, because nations that hide from great powers eventually become dependent on them by default. When you refuse to engage, you forfeit influence. When you forfeit influence, others make decisions for you. And when others make decisions for you, you are already dependent, whether you admit it or not. That is why engagement is not weakness, it is survival. It is the boldness to enter the arena of giants and declare, "We will not kneel, we will negotiate." The emotional truth is even sharper. Dependency is a mindset of defeat, a whisper that says, "We are too fragile to hold our own," but India is not fragile. It is ancient and unbroken, strong enough to test itself against anyone. By turning toward America, Jaishankar is not chaining India to another power. He is sharpening India's sword on the hardest stone available. He is proving that India can enter into deep partnerships without losing itself, that it can borrow strength without surrendering sovereignty, that it can align without being absorbed. So let us abandon the fear of dependency. Let us see this turn for what it truly is, a trial of strength, a chance for India to measure its voice against the loudest, its vision against the most ambitious, its sovereignty against the most demanding. If India emerges from that test standing tall, and it will, then the world will never again dare to question its independence. Dependency is weakness disguised as caution. Strength is engagement executed with clarity. Jaishankar's move is not submission. It is proof that India is ready to be tested and to pass. Global respect is not given. It is traded in the currency of strategic choices. Too often, nations imagine that respect comes from history, culture, or moral posturing. They believe the world will honor them simply because they are old, rich in tradition, or morally correct. But this is a fantasy. The world does not respect sentiment. It respects strength, and strength is revealed in the alliances you forge, the risks you take, and the clarity of your strategic direction. Respect is not free. It is purchased by choices that prove you are serious about power. This is why Jaishankar's turn toward the U.S. is so profound. India does not earn respect by standing still. It earns it by making choices that alter the balance of the world. Every nation, big or small, is watching not what India says, but what India does. And when India decides to align itself more closely with America, it is sending a signal that it is not content to be a background player. It is declaring that its choices will shape the very architecture of global politics. That is the kind of action that earns respect. Respect flows to those who act with clarity. Nations that hesitate, that try to please everyone, that float in the middle without daring to commit. These nations are pitied, not respected. They are seen as weak, as indecisive, as irrelevant. Respect flows only to those who plant their flag boldly and say, "This is who we are, this is where we stand, this is what we choose." And in that choice lies the beginning of authority. By leaning toward America, Jaishankar is buying India a seat at the table where tomorrow's world will be designed. Without that choice, India risks being left out of the room entirely. Some will argue that respect should not require alignment, that India should be respected simply because of its civilization, its democracy, its population. But ask yourself, has respect ever been given freely in the world of nations? Did China earn respect because of its ancient culture, or because it built an economy so vast that the world could not ignore it? Did America earn respect because of its ideals, or because it projected power on every continent? The truth is simple. Respect is not a right. It is a reward for strategic choices that prove you are relevant. And here lies the emotional weight. Respect is not just about how other nations see India, it is about how Indians see themselves. When a nation acts timidly, its people absorb that timidity. They begin to believe their destiny is small, their voice muted. But when a nation acts boldly, its people rise taller, speak louder, and dream bigger. The respect earned abroad feeds the pride at home. Every Indian child deserves to grow up in a nation that is not pitied, not ignored, but respected as a decisive force. That future depends on choices like this. So let us face the hard truth. Respect will not come from waiting. It will not come from nostalgia. It will not come from begging the world to notice us. It will come only when we make the choices that prove we belong at the center of global strategy. Jaishankar's turn toward America is one of those choices. It is not about imitation, it is about elevation. It is India buying respect not with words, but with decisive action. And in the world we live in, there is no stronger currency. India's destiny is not survival, it is leadership. For too long, the global imagination has spoken of India as a nation struggling to catch up, as if its only role is to survive in the shadow of others, to avoid collapse, to maintain stability. But destiny is not fulfilled by mere survival. Animals survive, nations rise. Survival is the bare minimum. Leadership is the true calling, and Jaishankar's shift toward America is not about ensuring that India continues to exist. It is about positioning India to lead in the century that is unfolding. Leadership is not inherited. It is not given by age, population, or even moral standing. Leadership must be claimed, and it is claimed through bold decisions that others are unwilling to make. Nations that wait for destiny to deliver leadership to them never achieve it. Nations that seize opportunities, that take risks, that align with the future rather than the past, those are the ones that rise above the noise of history. India is not called to be another voice in the crowd. It is called to be the conductor of the orchestra. But that vision demands choices, and Jaishankar is signaling that India is ready to make them. Consider what survival looks like. Survival means being content with a growing economy, but never shaping global trade. Survival means protecting your borders, but never defining the balance of power. Survival means being a player, but never a referee. Leadership, however, means something else entirely. Leadership means setting the rules, not just following them. Leadership means building the institutions that others join, not just joining those already made. Leadership means having the courage to challenge the world's assumptions rather than adapting to them. And leadership begins the moment a nation decides that survival is too small a dream. This is why the emotional resonance of this shift cannot be ignored. For every Indian citizen, the question is not whether India will survive. That is already assured. The question is whether India will rise to lead, whether it will stand tall in a world where only the decisive nations claim respect, whether it will have the courage to move beyond the safety of survival and step into the uncertainty of leadership, because leadership is never safe. Leadership always carries risk. But leadership is also the only path to greatness. By leaning toward America, Jaishankar is not declaring dependence. He is declaring ambition. He is saying that India's destiny is not to sit quietly, waiting for recognition, but to walk boldly onto the stage where recognition is earned. To stand with power is to prepare for power. To engage with leaders is to prepare for leadership. India cannot lead the 21st century by standing alone in the 20th. It must step into the flow of history and shape it. The shocking truth is that destiny punishes nations that settle for survival. They stagnate, they fade, they become footnotes, but destiny rewards nations that claim leadership with boldness, with alliances, with vision. India has the size, the people, the civilization to lead, but none of it matters unless it chooses to act. And that choice begins now with decisions like Jaishankar's. India was never meant to merely survive. It was meant to lead, and leadership is exactly what this turn toward America represents.